Hi everybody. I welcome all of you on YouTube's channel which is Unacademy, and herein I am Ambika Dhonkariya who will speak about paragraph writing. Now before discussing our topic in detail, I want to tell all of you a bit about Unacademy. So on this particular app you can be tutored, you can be you can be helped by nation's top educators. Right guys, you heard me pretty well. You know that when we live in our own particular community, when we live in a particular city or a state, we are being guided by particular teachers of that particular, city. But herein on Unacademy, you can be tutored from nation's best top educators who are prolific with their own uh, teaching streams, right? So, guys, you need to enroll yourself with Unacademy, and you can find this particular app on Play Store, and you can enroll yourself with Unacademy. For that, you can use my code, which is AMBIKA, to get a discount on your own enrollment. So, guys, go for it, and let's crack today's topic, which is paragraph writing. So as you already know, right, whatever type of composition we write, whatever, thoughts we are planning to write, they all need, there is supposed to be a proper paragraph for it, right? So that is what we will going to talk about in our today's lecture. You pick a chapter, essay, and any other prose compositions, they all are broken up into different layers of paragraphs. And why do we do that? Just to make the reading easier, just to make very comfortable for the reader so that they can actually learn or read about a thought in a particular paragraph, and then he can move to the next paragraph, which is about some other thing. So that is what the importance or the impact of a paragraph on a particular reader. Now, for a beginning of a new paragraph, mark a change of topic or a step into the development of an argument. Whatever you're trying to post in the beginning, in the introduction, it is supposed to be there in one paragraph, and then it can move later to the next one. You got my point? How we are supposed to do it? In one paragraph, there is supposed to be a channel of thoughts. In that channel of thought, you are supposed to stick to the one particular thought. Post that, you can move to the next followed paragraph. Now, in writing any composition, it is important to know how to divide them properly into paragraphs. Like while we are writing anything, it is very important for all of us to keep in mind that how we can divide our own thoughts into different set of paragraphs, right? Any composition which is not so broken up in looks uninteresting and is so difficult to read. And any composition which is like, there are so many thoughts attached to it, and there's no linear format attached to it. It looks so boring, and it is actually difficult for somebody to read. Because what is the objective of having those paragraphs is that one chain of thought is being completed. Now we are moving to the next one. Now, a simple definition of paragraph is that a paragraph is a number of sentences grouped together, and they are related to one another or to the same topic as they present the idea of the same topic. So, what is the agenda of a paragraph, or what is a simple, clear definition of a paragraph? So, paragraph simply means a simple set of sentences which are coming together, which are clubbed together. Oh, and they are explicitly talking about one single topic, right? So that is the simple definition of a paragraph. Now, they are not simply divided on any random thought, but it should be rather according to the change in ideas. So it's not simply about that you were talking about, let's just say, Prime Minister of India, right? So that is the topic of your own story, of let's just say, of your essay, and then you are talking about it. Suddenly, you simply can't talk about Shah Rukh Khan, right? So there is supposed to be a linear format in whatever you are writing. Now, if you are writing about, let's just say, the Prime Minister of India, in the first paragraph, you can talk about like how one can apply for this particular position, what all is required for this particular post. So, what all exams, if we have any exams for it, how you need to be associated with any of the political parties. So, that can be sorted out, that can be talked about in the same essay but in different paragraphs, right? So the idea is all the same, that we are talking about the prime minister of the nation, but then those ideas are further divided into subcategories of the paragraphs. There is therefore no rule as to the length of the paragraph. Now, because you don't feel like fitting any of those contexts, any of those paragraphs into, there's no sense also to keep a track of the length of the paragraph. It is not something like that you have given 5 lines to the introduction and then you have to repeat those 5 lines, the length at least when it comes to the middle of the or the body of the paragraph. No, we don't need to do that. It is simply, it is not any there is no set rules or set boundaries for the length of the paragraph. It can vary as per the whims and fancies of the writer. It may consist of a single sentence or it may have many sentences. So it is completely the free will of the reader of the writer, sorry, that he can write about a particular paragraph, maybe in one particular sentence or a series of sentences which can come together to make it a good example, or to keep in detail information about that paragraph. Now, herein, I have picked out the difference between the stanzas and the paragraphs. So, stanzas are something which we read in a poem, right? Those lines, they are simply called as stanzas. We will not going to call them as paragraphs. You know how in music also we do have stanzas and we don't have the paragraphs. The stanzas of a poem are usually of the same length and pattern. So, when we read a poem, we do have stanzas, and generally, I'm not talking about free words and I'm not talking about random thoughts which we write, but I'm talking about a proper format of a poem wherein we do have the same line, sometimes the same line assigned to a particular stanza. On the contrary, paragraphs are long or short according to the amount of matter to be expressed. So it is completely dependent on the time which you want to spend in writing that particular paragraph, and maybe just not the time but the thought. If you want to write about this particular thing and there's like no not so much of information available for you, so you can write a small tiny paragraph about it. But if there is something about which you know a lot, so you can write a huge or a long paragraph for it, right? Now, there are different types of paragraphs also, as we have already discussed about different types of essays. In the same way, we do have different types of paragraphs. The first one is classification paragraph. So, when writing a classification paragraph, you group things or ideas into specific categories, right? When we are writing classification paragraphs, what are we doing? We are grouping our own ideas, our own thoughts, our own things into specific categories. Example, write a paragraph discussing two types of resources. Maybe it can be renewable and non-renewable resources, right? So you can talk about those resources. So what did we do? We have classified those resources into two categories. They can be renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Second type of paragraph writing is called as description writing. So, in a description paragraph, you are writing about a place, person, or thing in a descriptive format. Sometimes you may describe where a place is located. So you can describe about any sort of, let's just say, any sort of an article, or article herein I mean any sort of an object, or any sort of any particular place, right? Any cafe maybe. So you can describe that particular person, place, or thing in your descriptive paragraph. For example, write a paragraph describing what a polar bear looks like, right? You can write about how any of the how there's a particular cafe, let's just say in Manali, so how it looks like, right? So you can simply talk about such things in your descriptive paragraph. When you are writing a whole description of something, that will going to fall under the category of descriptive paragraphs. Next is compare and contrast paragraphs. So in a compare and contrast paragraph, you write about the similarities and differences between two or more people, places, things, or ideas. We are simply comparing them, or we are trying to show the contrast, the difference between the two, right? So that will be going to fall under the category of compare and contrast paragraph. Example, write a paragraph comparing the weather in Canada and India. So you can compare as well as you can show the contrast between the two, the weathers of these particular nations, right? So what we are doing, we are comparing them also, and we are showing the difference between the two. Next is sequence paragraph. So, in a sequencing paragraph, you are writing to describe a series of events or a process in some sort of order. Usually, this order is based on time, right? So, how we are supposed to write a sequence paragraph when we are writing about the whole chronology of something, right? When we are talking like this happened first and then this came and then post that it happened, right? For example, if you have to write a paragraph outlining how a person becomes the governor of RBI, so how can we do that? What all exams are we supposed to fight for? And then what position, when you are done with that particular exam, at what position you actually apply for? And then how long it takes to become the governor of RBI? Do we have any particular age for that? So herein you are simply writing that how, from which exam you are supposed to begin with, and then how gradually you can move to the position of the governor of RBI. So you are talking about the sequence, a chronology, a fixed format of something. Next comes choice paragraph. So in a choice paragraph where you have to make a choice, you need to choose which object, idea, or action that you prefer. Often you will need to give your opinion or a choice of actions or events. So you need to give your own opinions, your own choices, or your own ideas about when you are writing choice paragraph. For example, it is a paragraph about what would you prefer to play. Would you prefer to play hockey over football or vice versa? So it is simply called as choice paragraph because you are giving your own views, your own ideas, your own notions about what is your own call on these particular sport and like which one do you want to play. So you have given your own choice here. Next is explanation paragraph. So in an explanation paragraph, you need to explain how or why something happens, like why something has happened and why. Very often in social studies class, you will be asked to explore cause and effects of certain events. So we have to talk about the cause and effects of certain things, right? So that whenever we are writing about the cause and effects of any particular thing, we are actually describing or discussing in detail. We are simply talking about their explanation paragraph. Example, write a paragraph explaining why so many Europeans moved to Canada during the 19th century. So why did they do it? Why did they leave Europe and they have moved to Canada? So you are explaining your own views, what all has happened there, what made them move from their own nation to the different country. Next is evaluation paragraph, right? So in an evaluation paragraph, you make judgments about people, ideas, and possible actions. You heard me right. We are simply judging. We are evaluating, right? We are evaluating in this particular type of paragraphs. You need to make your evaluation based on certain criteria that you develop, and you are evaluating your own thoughts on the certain sort of prior basis, like why you are, what are the basis of your evaluation. You have to keep that in mind in the beginning of writing any paragraph itself. In the paragraph you will state your evaluation or recommendation and then support it by referring to your criteria. Example, write a paragraph evaluating whether pesticides should be used on farms. So you are evaluating the whole process, like should we have it? And if yes, then why? And if not, then why not? Right? So you have evaluated the whole sort of the use of chemicals, pesticides, and then you are writing about it. So you are showing both the pros and the cons of it. Now, important tips which you need to consider while writing your paragraph. The first one is unity, right? So this is the most important principle which we need to keep in mind while writing the essay, such as each sentence deal with one thought. In the same way, each paragraph deals with the same idea of the topic. So there is supposed to be proper unity, right? There's supposed to be proper unity in what you were writing in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. It is not supposed to be a very haphazard idea, right? It is supposed to be a very linear process of writing. While writing an essay, every head and its subhead should have its own paragraph. Whatever you are writing, you have to divide the heading and then divide that heading into subheadings, right? And then you can write your paragraph revolving around discussing about those subheadings. Each paragraph in its totality must express the same idea of the topic. And each paragraph in its whole totality, should express about the main idea, about the major topic, which is the heading of your paragraph. The topic, theme, or subject of a paragraph is often expressed in one sentence of the paragraph, generally the first. This sentence is called the topical sentence, as it states the topic or the key sentence because it opens up the subject to be dealt in the paragraph. So the first sentence, that is called as topical sentence, because it is actually talking about the topic, right? It's talking about the topic which is right there and about which the whole paragraph will going to talk about in detail. Second comes the order. The second most important principle of paragraph construction is order. You have to keep in mind the perfect order about how exactly you want your thoughts to be delivered to the person who is reading it. It simply means the logical sequence of thoughts or development. So it simply means the logical sequence, chronology of events in which you want to express your thoughts to the reader. Events should be arranged in the format of their occurrence. It should not be like somebody entered into your house, you are telling it at the end, and then the whole story which was supposed to be before it, and then you are telling it later. No, there's supposed to be a proper format of all the events which occurred at the time when you are writing it. Now, important point is the two important paragraphs for any composition is that of the beginning and the end. Yes, that is the introduction and the conclusion. You need to give more importance to your introduction and to your conclusion. They are the lifeline of your own composition. Introduction should generate the interest of the reader and the conclusion should satisfy it. So while reading about any sort of article, any sort of composition, the readers should be very much thrilled with the idea of it. So you should generate some sort of interest in the readers. And when you are coming gradually to the conclusion, you have to conclude in a very strong way so that their thoughts, their ideas can, your own ideas and your own thoughts can satisfy the reader. Variety. We should skip monotonous sentences or statements in our text. You simply should not do that. You should simply not write about something in your sentences, which is taking place regularly in your own text. No, you have to skip to the monotony. The paragraphs should be of different length. And you need to keep this in mind that the paragraphs should be of varied length. Value points. Now you need to keep these points in mind while writing your own essays. Good writers are also good readers, right? So start investing your time in reading articles, in reading newspapers, in reading novels, watching news. so that these ways they will be there with you. At least when you're trying to write something, you can recall those particular articles, that particular quote from the novel, maybe anything, and perhaps they will going to help you out while you're writing any sort of composition. By exposing yourself to the well written work of others in novels, stories, and articles will help you learn new ways to express your own ideas. Although you are reading something which was written ages back, but then they give you a new outlook, a new perspective to the same idea. So you can pick out those particular points and then you can write about it in detail, and then you can, express your views, picking those particular quotes, and then you can write with your own paragraph. Next is plan before you write anything important. So whatever you are planning to write, maybe you're planning to write a simple email, right? So that also plan it. Just not start writing it. I mean, that is not supposed to be the final draft which you're supposed to send. Plan it few minutes back, okay? Prior. Sometimes just 5 minutes will help you plan and organize your ideas and result in stronger results. So that 5 minutes planning will going to help you out, when you are framing your own ideas, right? So that will going to give you better results. So invest your time in planning. Always, be it any sort of writing, right? Invest some time in planning how you want to express, how you want to articulate your thoughts. Complete your written assignments early so that you can put them aside to come back the next day to correct and proof them. So, proof here means proofreading. Once you have written it, if you're not supposed to send it the very same day, then keep it aside for a time being. Then come the next day to check it with a fresh mind and then proofread it. When writing anything, make sure that you stress that the idea, topic, theme is important to the reader, to the world. So, whatever you are writing, keep this in mind that you are writing for the masses and your own thoughts can change their views, right? So, keep this thing in mind. Essentially, answer the question, why do we care about what you are writing? And you should keep this thing in mind, like whatever I'm writing, it should change or it should bring some sort of you know um, a metamorphosis in somebody's life. It can be that. So keep that in mind whenever you are writing any piece of composition. Now, certain things which you need to keep in mind while writing your essays, maybe your articles, maybe your emails, and they are grammar and spelling. So check for your spelling, check for your grammar, read your essay again, read anything, whichever, whatever you are writing again and again. Because, once we read it, we somehow try to skip the errors which we have made earlier. But then rereading, rechecking it will actually help you in picking out the errors and then you can change them, you can modify them. Make sure each sentence has a subject. See if your subjects and verbs agree with each other, right? There we have talked about subject verb agreement. So you need to keep in mind that whatever subject you have used, is it going well with the verb which you have used here? So do check for your grammar also. Check the verb tenses of each sentence. There are, we Indians are tend to make errors with our verbs, right? So do check of the tenses of each of the particular verb which you're using, and then you can actually write a good sort of an essay. Make sure that each sentence makes sense. It should not be a very, a bleak idea. It is supposed to be a very clear and formative idea. Whatever you are trying to express, make sure that it is very clear, right? So that once somebody else in fact read it, they should get your idea very much clear in their own head. Style and organization. Make sure your paragraph has a topic sentence, right? So has a topic sentence here means that a new paragraph has to be connected with the topic which has been provided to you. Make sure your supporting sentences focus on the same idea. And whatever ideas you are picking up, whatever anecdotes, whatever stories you are trying to connect with, they are supposed to be connected with the main idea, right? The quotes, the other paragraphs, the other lines, the other story, whatever you are trying to compare something with something, then you need to keep in mind that they are supposed to be correlated with each other. Make sure you have a closing sentence. As I have already told you that there is supposed to be a proper concluding statement sentence with you. Check that all your sentences focus on the same idea. Again, we have to keep this in mind. We have been discussing this for a very long time that you need to keep this in mind that whatever you are writing, this has to has a clear connection with the theme of your essay. See if your paragraph is interesting. Make it interesting so that others would feel very interested in reading it again and again. Now herein we have got a sample. So let's check out how we can write a simple, sorted, clear paragraph. Alexander the Great was a successful ruler because his actions created long lasting effects on cultures that continue to the present day. So, as we already know in the beginning itself, that this is about Alexander the Great and his impact on the people on the larger level. One example of his legacy was the creation of Hellenistic society. Hellenism was the combination of Greek, Persian, and Egyptian cultures. During this remarkable time period, people were encouraged to pursue a formal education and produce many different kinds of art. New forms of math, science, and design made a great impact on society. If this new way of life had not been as successful as it was, Alexander's legacy would not be as memorable and groundbreaking because he conquered many countries and blended together many different cultures. Alexander the Great is widely recognized for his achievements and credited with being one of the greatest rulers in history. So, as you all have noticed, that in the beginning, in the middle, and in the conclusion, also, we never deviated from our topic, which was talking about Alexander the Great. So, that is what you also have to keep in mind while writing any sort of paragraph. That how there is supposed to be unity. Along with that, you need to keep variety in your own paragraph. Like if one paragraph has talked about the introduction, the middle will talk about what, then the other will talk about what. How would you like to conclude it, with a paragraph, with a quote? I mean, in a paragraph, like with a quote, with a simple anecdote, with a slogan. So that is completely your call. Another important thing which we need to keep in mind is our grammar and vocabulary. Check for your spellings, check for your grammar, check for your vocabulary words. If you aren't sure about any of the particular words, skip that out. You don't need to write something which is not which is not acceptable in that particular paragraph. So avoid making such errors in your own paragraph, right? And I hope I have made it very clear and very easy for all of you that how you can write your paragraphs, right? And as I have already told you, you have to enroll yourself with Unacademy. And for that, you can use my code, which is AMBIKA. With that, I'm signing off.